right, today we're going to focus on number lines and where to put decimals and later on fractions on a number line. So here I have two number lines and they look a little different, okay? Here you can see a whole is this big, and in this number line a whole is this big, all right? But no matter the size of your number line, this is what you need to think about when you see a number line. This means one whole, this means two wholes, and this means three wholes. And I put the dollars here because when you see a number line and you're putting decimals into your number line, the best thing to do is to divide it into 4 sections each. So one whole is like one whole dollar, right? And when you divide it into 4 equal sections, okay, when you divide a dollar into 4 equal sections, how much do you have? So like here's the halfway mark. So if you have half a dollar, how much do you have? Right? If you have a fourth of a dollar, how much is that? If you have 3/4 of a dollar, how much is that? Okay. These are your main benchmarks. We call them benchmarks in a number line. Those are your main benchmarks. Okay. We use those to decide where we're going to put our decimal. Well, remember, 4 quarters make a dollar, right? So if you only have a fourth of a dollar, you have 1/4. If you have half of a dollar, you have 2, which is 50 cents. If you have 3/4 of a dollar, that's like having 3/4, right? 3/4. And that would be 75 cents. And then, of course, once you have the 4 quarters, it's the same thing as what? A dollar, okay? So, knowing that, this benchmark here, this benchmark right here, is 25 hundredths, just like a quarter, right? This benchmark here, halfway between 0 and 1, is 0.5, or you could put the 0 for 50 cents, right? And then here, this would be 0.75 or 75 hundredths, and then you've got a whole dollar. Right? Now, money stops at the hundredths place, but we know that if we needed to, we can add what? Extra zeros, and it doesn't really change the value, right? We can add extra zeros, and it doesn't change the value. So when we pass the 1 whole, so once we pass the 1 whole, we are at 2 wholes now, okay? So then halfway, we put our benchmarks in, right? So there's the half, the 1/4, and then the 3/4. So how much would this be? If you went all the way over here, you'd have 1 whole dollar and 25 cents, right? So then this part right here would be 1 and 25 hundredths. And then here, if you had all this all the way up to here, you would have 1 and 5/10 or 50 hundredths if you want to make it look like money, okay? And then here, you would have 1 and 75 hundredths, or $1.75. And then once you get another quarter, if you have 8 quarters, you have what? $2, all right? So before you put decimals on the number line, you really need to put in your benchmarks so that it helps you gauge where your decimal should be, all right? Now let's look at this number line down here. Now here I used Hershey bars, okay? Now with this one here, you can see that the Hershey bar, I opened one so you could see it. The Hershey bar is broken into 4 sections. Same thing kind of like the dollar, right? This Hershey bar is broken into 4 sections. Now if I gave you this much of the Hershey bar, you only got 1/4 of the Hershey bar. If I give you this much, you have 1/2 of the Hershey bar. If I give you this much, you have 3 pieces out of 4, so you have 3/4 of the Hershey bar. Now, if I give you all 4 pieces, 4 out of 4 would be what? 1 whole. You got 1 whole Hershey bar. Well, what if I gave you this much and then part of this one, right? So again, divide your number line into 4 sections. Those are your benchmarks, right? So if I gave you this this much, and then plus this much, you got 1 whole and 1/4 of this candy bar. If I decide to give you this much, you got 1 whole candy bar and 1/2, so you got 1 1/2. If I decide to give you this much plus this much of this candy bar, you got 1 whole and 1/4, 2/4, which is 1/2, 3/4. So here you got 1 3/4. And of course, if I gave you this much and then 4 more sections, you got what? 2 wholes, right? And then we can keep doing it here as well. You can break this number line into 4 equal sections, right? If I gave you 1 whole, 2 wholes, and then 1/4 of one, you got 2 1/4. If I gave you 1 whole, 2 wholes, and 1/2 of one, you got 2 1/2. And if I gave you 1 whole, 2 wholes, and then 3 pieces from this candy bar, you got 2 3/4. And then, of course, if I gave you all of it, you got 3 whole candy bars. Okay? So that's how we need to look at number lines. Okay, you have to put in your benchmarks first because it really helps us put our decimals in the right spot. So if the decimal was 0.3, which is 3/10, okay, so that's a good one. 3/10, where would 3/10 go? Where would 0.3 go? Would 0.3 be like 3 pennies? Or would it be like 30 cents? Well, let's look at 0.3. Let's write it on the side here. Is that like 3 cents or 30 cents? Well, 30 cents has to look like this, right? And 3 cents looks like this. So which one is this equal to? Well, it's equal to this one because remember, we can put a 0 behind it and it doesn't change the value. So where would 3/10 go? Would it go behind the 25 cents or in front of the 25 cents? Well, 30 cents is more than 25 cents, but it's less than 50 cents, right? So it would probably go around right here. Okay, that's where the 3/10 would go. All right? So this really helps us figure out where the decimals should go.